Well, Nationals fans, we have good news and we have bad news. The good news is pitchers and catchers reported to spring training yesterday, and spring training is a go. The bad news, Stephen Strasburg suffered another setback that we're going to get into right after this.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I'm your host, Ryan Clary, and I have taken my passion for this Nationals baseball club into podcast form with the Locked On Podcast Network, where you get your team every single day. And our team, well, that is the 2019 World Series champion Washington Nationals, and baseball is back. Spring training is back. Davey Marttinez met with the media yesterday and did get into some details of what we could be looking at. And he actually dropped one little anecdote on Cade Cavalli that I'm going to be getting into after I discuss this Stephen Strasburg update, because as I alluded to, we have bad news when it comes to Stephen Strasburg. And if you remember, I'm assuming you do, Stephen Strasburg went under a TOS surgery, a thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. And if you aren't aware of what that is, it is a nerve issue that is in between your neck and shoulder. And if you see me on YouTube, you'll see me pointing at it right around there. And it's kind of an iffy surgery. A lot of people can bounce back from it and others can't. Well, the Nationals have two players right now, and two key players right now on their roster. One of them is a prospect. The other is Stephen Strasburg. That prospect, Cole Henry, we're going to be getting into later in this show as well, because there are some updates on him, and they are a lot better than Stephen Strasburg's updates that we're going to get into this second. Stephen Strasburg suffered another setback in his comeback to the Nationals. And this is all unfortunate, very unfortunate news when it comes to the Nationals. We know it. Stephen Strasburg has a lot of money left on his contract in a lot of years. He's going about $35 million a year over the next few years, and we are still unsure of the future of Stephen Strasburg because he had another setback in his recovery. And if you remember, Jesse Doherty from the Washington Post has covered the Washington Nationals for quite a while now, and he wrote about Stephen Strasburg in the future that he may be having or may not be having back in September. So you should try to find that article and read those comments that Strasburg gave him, because it was eye-opening. And I spent a few days discussing that, because we know this about Strasburg. He is not the most open cat out there. And what I mean by that, when there's a media scrum, you're not going to find Strasburg in the thick of it. He's just not the type to really meet and open up to the media, and that is just okay. That's how he carries himself as a professional, and as far as I'm concerned, he is a professional on and off the field. I have no issue about that. But when he opened up about that back in September, that's when the alarms ran off for me. Because he himself and Mike Rizzo as well, they don't know the future of Stephen Strasburg. And at that point, he was still recovering from thoracic outlet syndrome. And ultimately, what have we gone to with now? As there's semi-good news when it comes to the Strasburg side of it, that he was able to throw a bullpen. But in that bullpen, that's where he suffered that setback from TOS surgery. And that is where we are today. That is where we are today. He had this surgery back in the summer of 2021. And if you remember back in 2020, he had surgery for a nerve through his hand, which was obviously not the fix for it. So now we're looking at it from this perspective that Stephen Strasburg, in his first bullpen back, I believe it was his first bullpen back, suffered a setback in his potential return to the Nationals, which even then, that's not even a guaranteed thing. But here's what stinks the most about this. It's not even really the contract. It's not even the contract, because at this point, Stephen Strasburg is a made man in Washington, D.C., the World Series MVP, the former number 1 overall pick. The debut that he had back in 2010 with the Nationals was something that we have never seen before. In baseball, quite frankly, has never seen that kind of debut. And the hype of Stephen Strasburg coming up. This is just where we are, and we don't know what the future holds for Stephen Strasburg moving forward. And that is a gut punch on day 1 of spring training. It is. I personally did kind of expect this. I did expect a setback, and the only reason I say that is because of what we have seen since he has had that surgery. It's now been almost 2 years, if we're going up till this summer, that he had this surgery. And these injuries that he has over the years with Tommy John, multiple different surgeries, procedures, different type of injuries that landed him on the injured list, it's starting to add up. And I can see the light at the end of the tunnel here, and it's not a good light, unfortunately. This is just kind of the sign of the times that we could be done with Stephen Strasburg pitching in the major leagues. In saying that alone, it's a bad thing to say. It is. But then you look at the history of this surgery with guys who are in their mid-30s. It's not a successful track record. There are some success stories from thoracic outlet syndrome surgery. It's a lot of words there. But also, there are a good amount of cases to where guys who just weren't the same. This is not even an injury that just affects him on the baseball field. This is a life injury, the way that I call it. This is something to where it is nagging 24/7. He is probably in pain all the time. Not all the time, maybe, but you get the point. You get what I'm trying to say. So it's even beyond the baseball. When you pick up your kid, he probably has a feeling. I don't know what that feeling is. That's something that we would have to ask Stephen Strasburg. But you see what I'm saying, is that this is a tough injury to rebound from. And if we aren't made aware of that already, then we have to be. Because our expectations for Strasburg moving forward, they have to be slim to none. If he pitches again for the Washington Nationals, honestly, I would be shocked. Or I'll even go a little shorter than that. If you were to get 5 starts from Stephen Strasburg, I would be stunned to see it in the major leagues. It's just the time has come for him. Obviously, his arm is not in a healthy position in order to pitch every 5 days, let alone 150 innings a year. How can we trust it at this point? It seems to me that he probably doesn't trust it too much. The doctors, they're not coming out being like, yeah, like he's in a good position. No, it's unfortunate. He's not. So we sit here today, first day of spring training, and we get this update that he has set another setback. And that is just the unfortunate thing when it comes to the Nationals, because then you look at guys who have not returned successfully, and there are notable names out there. Joe Ross's brother, Tyson Ross, he had TOS. He did not recover the same. Matt Harvey, former New York Met, the Batman, did not recover. Matt Harrison, Chris Carpenter, to name a few more. And there are guys right now currently in the league. Merrill Kelly, he has had this surgery, and I believe that he has bounced back from it in a well way. And I'm going to get into some success stories of TOS surgery as we talk about Cole Henry, who had this surgery and seems to be on the right tracks, seems to be on great tracks. Now, we're going to get into on segment 3 of this. But right now, it's about Stephen Strasburg and this injury. And it sucks to say it, but this is where we're at. We're probably not going to see Stephen Strasburg pitch for the Nationals this year. And that is just a guesstimate. I don't want to see it happen. I want to see him pitch in May. I want to see him pitch opening day. That's not going to happen. He didn't report down to West Palm Beach. He's still in Washington, D.C. rehabbing, and that says it all, in my opinion. He's not down at spring training, not by choice. He's rehabbing. Whatever it has to do with up here, he's up in Washington, D.C. doing his rehab. So now, what is the future for Stephen Strasburg? Well, unfortunately, it's a little dark. You could say very dark. And that is the sad thing with it. Because not only is he just electric when he goes out there, not only is he one of the best pitchers in the game when he's healthy, one of the most consistent pitchers in the game of baseball over the last decade. It's not only that. It's the fact that he does have more left in the tank if it weren't for these injuries. And if it weren't for the injuries in the past, would we be in this situation? Who knows? But man, oh man, that was a gut punch to start spring training. But ultimately, we kind of expected this, at least myself. So I prepared myself for this moment. I've talked myself into it. And this is now the reality of things once again. Setbacks with Stephen Strasburg. It's unfortunate. We hope for the best. You and I, we're hoping for the best. It's as simple as that. Speaking of hoping for the best, Davey Martinez today alluded to a point on how nothing is set in stone for Cade Cavalli moving forward with the Nationals. Could Cade Cavalli start the league year rather, in AAA Rochester? Well, I mean, you're going to find out my reaction if you didn't just get a taste of it right then and there. I'm going to talk about that. But before, I got to tell you guys about my friends over at FanDuel. The midway point of the NBA season is here, and now is a perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scores and threes drained. And here's what I love to do. I love to bet on the Milwaukee Bucks. Any opportunity that you get to bet on the Milwaukee Bucks, do it with me and do it with my friends over at FanDuel and bet the Milwaukee Bucks. The spread, the money line, maybe points for Giannis Antetokounmpo. I say you do that. And I just killed that name, by the way. Plus, FanDuel even lets you combine your bets for a chance at a bigger payout with same-game parlays. So don't miss a chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. And now we get into what Davey Martinez was saying about Cade Cavalli from the media scrum this afternoon in West Palm Beach, or last afternoon, rather. And this is what he had to say. Quote unquote, "There's nothing really set in stone. Everything's wide open when it comes to Cade Cavalli suggesting that he would have a solidified starting spot in the major league roster." Quote, "There's nothing really set in stone. Everything's wide open," end quote. And here's what I'll say. I disagree with this wholeheartedly. Now, if Cade Cavalli, if you remember, he was shut down after his debut with the Nationals last year with some elbow inflammation. Not a huge injury. It's fine. He's 100% to start spring training. And quite frankly, he's been 100% for a couple months now, from what I understand. It is okay to take your lumps at the major league level. There is a dinosauric type of philosophy with some managers, and I'm not going at Davey Martinez here. He never guaranteed anything. He never guaranteed that he would be starting down in AAA. This is just my own opinion. It is okay to get thumped around in the major leagues. A lot of pitchers have done this. You can develop yourself in the major leagues. And what I say by that is, yes, the minor leagues is about development. If you don't believe that your guy is fully developed yet and he's on the major league roster, then he probably shouldn't be in the major leagues. But in this scenario to where Cade Cavalli now should have been up in May of last year. And it's, yes, he's had some injuries in the past that has kind of set him back a little bit, but nothing crazy. So we sit here today, and to say that Cade Cavalli does not have a solidified starting spot kind of rubs me the wrong way. And it's not for the fact that, well, maybe he's not developed. Well, Davey Martinez, this is not on you. This is not on you, Mike Rizzo. Let's take a look at the MLB roster that we have right now. And can we truly say, is Victor Robles developed? Is CJ Abrams developed? Name that young player. Name that older player too as well on this roster. Is that player developed well? Probably not, because this is not the best team going into spring training. So with that all being said, Cade Cavalli should 1,000% be on your opening day roster. In fact, he should start in that opening series and be one of your top three. And obviously, is he going to be a top three starter? Probably not, but he could be. There's definitely more of a case to have him in that situation than down in AAA. Because at this point, with the Nationals, you can't be holding up service time for some of these guys. And yes, Cade Cavalli will not be in AAA the entire year if he were to be sent down there. And I know for a fact he would be disappointed in that. And that's the last thing that you want to see happen when it comes to one of your top pitching prospects and really one of the better pitching prospects in baseball. That's what I think. So I think Cade Cavalli should start out in the major leagues because there's really no reason not to at this point. He's already gotten a taste of it. And if you don't believe that he's fully developed at this point, that's fine. Because when he comes up to the majors, it doesn't matter what it is. He's going to take his lumps. Look at Josiah Gray. Was Josiah Gray fully developed when we got him? Maybe. But others would say not. You even saw him this last year struggle. So let Cade Cavalli struggle. It's a good thing to allow these young players develop in the major leagues. It's okay to do that. Now, if we were a winning team, if we had something to play for, we do have something to play for this year. I'm not going to count us out completely yet, but I'm smelling the same coffee that you are. It's okay to allow this team in the major leagues to develop players in the major leagues. It's okay to allow a player to give up 6 runs in 5 innings. It's okay to allow guys like Cade Cavalli to get rocked in 3 innings. It's going to happen. Guess what? A lot of these guys learn from those mistakes. It's a cliche answer, but when you ask guys like John Smoltz, they'll tell you about the times that they got rocked and how they learned in the major leagues, and it's different. The competition is different from AAA all the way up to the majors. It's just better. You want to see the best of the best with Cade Cavalli. You don't want to have him developed and be ready for AAA Rochester. What does that do? It does nothing. Develop him in the major leagues. And quite frankly, if you're saying that he isn't fully developed, we got an issue. Because this is someone who is in the futures game in 2021. looked incredible in that game as well. So what is the holdup? What is the fuss when it comes to Cavalli? I'm not buying it, and I won't buy it, in fact. So Cavalli should be, and I do believe he will be, on the opening day roster and will start with the big league club, because I'm not seeing the point in allowing him to go down to AAA and develop there and get used to minor league hitting. It's time. It's the big boys, man. You're with the big boys now. It's time to start in the major leagues, and this isn't on Cavalli. It's whoever's making the decision. But then again, Cavalli will be in the majors 1,000% at some point this year, and I still believe he will start on the opening day roster. But the fact that they aren't just handing it to him at this point is a little concerning, to say the least, for myself, and that's just speaking for me and me only. But now we get into Cole Henry, who also had thoracic outlet syndrome surgery this year, and he has taken a much different direction than Stephen Strasburg, and in fact could be pitching for your Nationals at some point in 2023. And I'm going to talk to you guys about that. But before, thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. Locked On MLB Prospects, which is hosted by Lindsey Crosby, who is the prospect encyclopedia of the Locked On Podcast Network, and he's going deep on the MLB Stars of Tomorrow. That pod is a free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And now we get into Cole Henry, one of the Nationals' brighter prospects. And in fact, if I were, and I will at some point, to make a top 10 prospect list for the Washington Nationals, Cole Henry would 1,000% be in that picture. And in fact, Cole Henry, second round pick out of LSU in 2020, he probably would be a top 100 prospect if he was healthy, but he has dealt with some arm injuries throughout his career as well down in LSU and as well in the minors. So there are questions there certainly, but he has sounded positive. And Jesse Doherty of the Washington Post yesterday brought out a story early in the morning. Not really that early. I guess it was only 9 a.m. But you get the point. He talked with Cole Henry, recovering from TOS surgery, and it is sounding like Cole Henry is feeling like himself yet again. So, as we were saying, Cole Henry, I believe that if Cole Henry were to be healthy, he could have even been a higher prospect than Cade Cavalli. And I say that Cole Henry would have been a first-round pick if it weren't for his arm issues over his college career. And this is a guy that is dedicated to baseball. It's clear as ever. He is a baseball guy through and through. He's got the personality. He's got the mustache, which I love. He's got the flow of the hair. And plus, he's got the build. His father played in the major leagues, or actually minor leagues. I don't believe he made it to the major leagues. But the thing is, as I kind of doomed everyone with Stephen Strasburg and the TOS surgery, there is gloom on the other side of this with Cole Henry. Because as I said earlier, there are a lot of pitchers who have not made it back from TOS. But there are pitchers that have made it back and have been successful, like Kenny Rogers back in 2001, like Chris Young at age 34, like guys like Aaron Cook, Mike Adams, Josh Beckett, and Frankie Montas back in 2016, Alex Cobb and Chris Archer as well, Merrill Kelly as well from the Diamondbacks. There are guys that have made it back, and especially once you get it younger in your career. Cole Henry's, I believe, is only 23 years old today. Only 23 years old, and that does make a difference from the information that I've collected about this surgery. You know, it's simple. There's less wear and tear on your arm at that point. Less surgeries, less procedures, whatever it may be. Less innings, less pitches thrown. It's easier for younger people to recover. breaking news. So, with that being said, I just needed to sprinkle a little bit of optimism for the Nationals because Cole Henry, this is his quote, "Ever since I have honestly felt good as new." And he has opened up about this and has said that, yeah, I feel good. And this is another quote about Mike Rizzo. "It's more relieving than concerning," saying about Cole Henry's situation. Quote, "There are no miles on his arm. I think that's the issue you see with Strauss. Strauss had a lot of trauma to his arm in that side of his body. And I'm hoping that because the kid is clean everywhere else, he can bounce back from this and be one of the success stories of this surgery." And again, that was a quote from Mike Rizzo from Jesse Doherty's story yesterday on Cole Henry. So, as I doomed everyone with Stephen Strasburg, there is light at the end of the tunnel for Cole Henry, and he seems to be going on the right track and should be, you never know, but should be making a full recovery from what it seems. And that is an awesome feeling because if you get a healthy Cole Henry, you're adding another potential ace to this staff. I will talk about Cole Henry as this season goes on, as we get some more info out of him. And of course, as we see more production from him, because he's still young, he's got time to develop. But if everything goes well, I do believe you will see him with the 2023 Washington Nationals, and he will make a start in the big leagues eventually. So thank you for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every day. My next episode is going to be coming out tomorrow because we are back to 5 days a week once again. I'm going to have all the news and notes from day 2 of pitchers and catchers being down in spring training, as well as a little preview into spring training. Who are some guys that didn't get the invite that were a little surprised? Who were guys who weren't on the active roster who did get the invite to spring training? I will discuss all of that and more, but make your second listen Locked On MLB Prospects, again, hosted by Lindsey Crosby, the prospect encyclopedia of the Locked On Podcast Network. And that pod is free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Again, guys, baseball is in the air. We are ready to go. And who is ready to watch some Nationals baseball? Because we are inching closer and closer by the second of the day. You have a good one.